There we go. Coming to you live from Goosey Road, the headquarters of the South.
Goosey Hill Road.
Goosey Hill Road, is that how it is?
We just call it the Hill.
Okay. Coming to you live from the Hill. Christopher Thomas, thanks for being on the show.
Like that? You're all
yeah,
super
you can
pro,
set
right?
it right here. You can set it right here. It's whatever you want to do.
Right here.
I mean,
this
you're a
feels
pro.
a
It's
little
whatever
bit
you want to do with
like-
the mic.
Oh, man.
Okay, so you said first things first. You said we might be dipping into some bourbon on the podcast.
Why not?
Okay.
It's a little bit of a chilly day.
Yep.
And I find that a modest amount of bourbon is good for the soul.
Yeah, I think it's...
And it encourages conversation.
Sure.
I believe that.
Yep.
And so I just picked out 3 this morning. I was like, oh, I'll just throw these in here and
So what do we have? What do we have here?
This one closest to you is a 1989 Wild Turkey, 8-year, 101 proof. It's one of my favorites. People who know me know I'm slightly obsessed with antique Wild Turkey bourbons.
Yep.
And so that's a really good one.
That's an 89 right there.
That's a 1989. And then,
Look at that. Look at that.
There's just something fun about antique bottles of bourbon.
Yeah. I have no
really
experience
fun.
with antique bourbon at all.
Man. Okay. Well, we'll see if you like it.
So
and
that
then
absolutely qualifies.
Let
me ask this real quick, Chris.
Sure.
So you said this is 1989. When you say antique bourbon, what qualifies for that?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know that there's a technical definition.
Okay.
But I think in that community, in the whiskey bourbon community, that would be referred to as a dusty.
Okay.
That's kind of the I don't know, the terminology, the lingo that somebody would use. They would say that's a dusty. And so I would say anything that is 20 years or older qualifies as a quote unquote dusty bottle.
Yep. Okay.
And so that would be in the, what is it, 89? That's almost a 30-year-old bottle of bourbon.
Yep. That qualifies.
That was putting you on the shelf somewhere, who knows, in 1989.
Yeah, not that long after I was born,
There you go. What's your birth year?
84.
Okay. I may have like an 84 bottle inside.
Are you serious? A
Yeah.
Wild Turkey?
Yeah.
Wow. What else you got?
I kind of keep those on hand. And then this is a, what year is this? I think it's a 2016 bottle of Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year.
Oh, wow.
And so that's from the Van Winkle line.
Yep.
That's the youngest of the Van Winkle line. So it's a 10-year-old bourbon, 107 proof. It's a wheater. Are you familiar with that term?
I'm not.
So a wheater is going to be, it's a bourbon, so it's 51% corn, but then the second grain that they use is wheat.
I see.
Whereas a lot of other ones may use rye or they may use malted barley, something like that as second grain.
Yep.
This one uses wheat as that secondary grain, and so wheaters typically tend to be a little bit sweeter. It's people compare it a lot. They would say if you eat a sandwich on wheat bread and you eat a sandwich on rye bread,
yes,
rye bread is that spicier. It's a spicier grain, and wheat tends to be a little bit sweeter. You see a lot of honey wheat breads or things like that. You don't really see a honey rye bread.
I see.
So wheat is going to be a little bit softer, a little bit sweeter.
So I know enough about bourbon to know, and this is about it, honestly, but Pappy Van Winkle is a big name.
Yes.
This is obviously something to do with that.
Something to do with that. So a lot of people would get, you have the Van Winkle line, which consists of 6 different bottles. You have a 10-year-old bourbon. You have 5 of those 6 are all the same recipe. So you have a 10-year-old bourbon that's 107 proof. You have a 12-year-old bourbon that's 90-something proof. I can't remember. You have a 15-year-old bourbon, which, in my opinion, is the sweet spot for this. It is the 15-year-old is like, in my opinion, one of the best that ever has been. It's 107 proof. Then you have a 20-year-old bourbon that I can't remember the proof on that, and then a 23-year-old bourbon. So all of those are the same recipe.
I see.
And then you have a 13-year-old rye whiskey that is, I can't remember the proof on that either. It's 90-something, I think.
Yep.
So the Van Winkle line has 5 bourbons and 1 rye whiskey.
I see.
This is the youngest of the bourbon lines, and then but only the 15, 20, and 23-year are called Pappy Van Winkle.
Gotcha.
This one is considered to be Old Rip Van Winkle.
Okay.
And then you have what is referred to as Lot B, which is I think it's a Van Winkle Reserve 12-year.
I see.
Lot B, yeah.
Got it. And lastly,
This one is a Kentucky Owl, which is a brand that was started by a friend of mine, Dixon Dedman, and this is a rye whiskey. They have a bourbon that comes out once a year. They have a rye whiskey that comes out maybe twice a year. That is batch 2 of the rye whiskey, and it's absolutely delicious in every single way.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what do I got to do to get a little?
You just take whatever you want.
In there.
Take whatever you want.
I'm gonna go for a little bit of the Old Rip Van Winkle.
You do you do, Kent.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. Actually, do you mind pouring just pour that in there because my hands are cold because I want to tee up this next question. I'm assuming that all of these bourbons would go really great with some Eli Mason. Is that a correct assumption? I'm getting the Eli Mason plug in here.
Yeah, I know.
We're just going to get that over with at the outside.
Do people know you own a big stake in that business?
No, that's not important.
But they should.
What is important is that you own the big stake, and I'm trying to do right by you. So
You're
the bourbon guy here.
I own a modestly larger amount than you do. We're both.
Well, you were the one that did the deal, and you were kind enough to let me be a little bit of an investor on the side. So anyhow, back to Eli Mason.
Yes. I would. Here's my opinion. You could absolutely mix any of these with Eli Mason.
Okay.
And so there are 2 schools of thought in this world. One is, my goodness, you have 3 really delicious whiskeys right here.
Yeah.
Enjoy them neat.
Yes.
Enjoy the full flavor of what they are, and don't go messing with them.
Yes.
So the person who would say that is a lot of times saying, hey, find you a great, a Jim Beam bottle and bond, or a Heaven Hill bottle and bond, a Buffalo Trace, a solid mixing whiskey, and leave things at this level to be enjoyed neat.
Yes.
Then you have Julian Van Winkle, who would say, the better the whiskey, the better the cocktail. And so he would say, man, use that, use 15-year, use 23-year, use whatever you want to use. I'm like, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
If you want to use great whiskey like that in a cocktail, awesome. If you want to not and just enjoy it neat, that's great too.
Don't you think it depends on the scarcity? Because I feel like if I had a bottle of this in my closet, I would probably never mix it with anything. Even though I love Eli Mason, I would drink it neat. But if this was my company and or I had a lot of this laying around, then sure, I would probably occasionally mix it in and make me a good cocktail.
There are, that's the way I feel like most people approach how they handle whiskey and mixing with cocktails. Mm-hmm. But the Bourbon Boom the bourbon world has lost its mind over the last 5 years. And so it used to be that you could buy this on the shelf, buy the case for $60 a bottle, and it was readily available all the time. And now you can't find this stuff. So, I mean, we both have somewhat of a relationship with Blackberry Farm, and they would say the 15-year-old version of this, they used to buy private barrels of the 15-year-old Pappy Van Winkle, and it was their house bourbon. In every bourbon cocktail they served, they would mix Pappy Van Winkle 15-year in.
No way.
Which is insane to think about.
Yeah, it really is.
But it was so readily available then that you could buy your own barrel and have it bottled up, and that became, they literally told me they would make Jack and Cokes with that.
That's insane.
It's insane.
That's crazy to think about.
Not this
now.
one, the 15-year-old version.
Okay,
of this.
wow.
So,
by the way,
it's just exploded.
That is really,
isn't that good?
Really great.
Now this one is, in my opinion, it's I love the 107 proof for this Van Winkle weeder, that recipe. I feel like the 107 is the sweet spot on proof. The 15 years is a sweet spot on age. But that one opening, like a fresh crack, is a little bit hot, super harsh. But man, over time, it softens up and mellows out a little bit and sweetens up, and man, it's so good. It's delicious.
So I got a question for you. This we may just jump all over the place today.
This is going to be.
This was not a pre-planned question.
I don't want you to think you're going to escape, by the way, because I just listened to the Kent Lapp story. I did, and so this is going to be like a whiskey therapy session.
You know what? I need that.
We could talk about sibling conflict.
Yes.
About losing a parent. About father wounds, which I know your dad was. I know your dad was a good guy.
Yep.
Do you ever think about I'm just gonna start off asking you questions. Do you ever think about? Do you feel like you have father wounds?
So I lost my father when I was 10. I had just turned 10. A father wound, I guess I would need that clarified a little bit more. Like, I guess I wouldn't naturally think in those terms.
Yeah, which
but
I
if
wouldn't
you give
either.
me a little more context.
I wouldn't either. I would say naturally people think about if you hear that term thrown around, hey, father wound.
Yep.
It's typically it's not a good relationship with a dad. There's some abuse. There's some some wounds there.
That's marking you sort of to this day, right?
Yes. But I would argue that you probably have one. Just in terms of whether, I mean, your dad was a great guy.
Yeah.
We know that. So he treated you well, treated your mom well, treated your family well. But he was gone too early. And so I would wonder if there are feelings of or issues of abandonment that you encounter in life.
Yes, I think that is correct. So
I just
I
totally flipped it on.
Yeah, you did. I'll come back. I'll come back to my unpreplanned question. So my initial answer to your question, do I have a father wound? My gut would have said no, because I don't feel like it marks me negatively on a day-to-day basis. But when I stop and think about, do I have issues with abandonment or anything, other things? I mean, I would probably agree with you. I may have a father wound, so to speak. I mean, he was gone way too early.
Yeah.
And here's one thing that comes to mind, which is both good and bad. I feel like, having lost a father at a young age, I am more prepared to lose anything like that.
Yeah.
Just like that, gone. That can be good, because we don't want to have our hearts set on temporary things and sort of treat them as eternal, when things come and things go, and material things come and material things go, and businesses come and businesses go, and even friendships sometimes will come and go. And so I think it gives me on one hand, it gives me a healthy outlook on the reality of things coming and going. On the other hand, I'm sure there's no question that I would guard and just be ready for things to come and go too quickly.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the movie Heat?
I don't think I have.
You've never seen the movie Heat?
I don't think that I have. Heat.
Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Oh my goodness.
I don't think that I have, no.
Yeah. In that movie, De Niro is a bank robber, like a high stakes bank robber.
Okay.
Has a crew, has a whole plan, busting up into a bank, AKs, I mean, maybe not AKs, but like, legit, fully automatic assault rifles.
Yep.
But he meets a girl, and she doesn't fully know what he does or how he makes his money.
Okay.
And he feels himself falling in love with her. But he knows he has this one big job, and he knows that Al Pacino's character, who's a police officer, is hot on the trail. He's the heat.
Okay.
And so he talks about, at one point in the movie, how you never be close enough to anything that you can't just drop it when you spot the heat around the corner.
Okay.
And so there's a scene in the movie where she's waiting on him, and he's approaching her, but he sees Pacino behind her in a large crowd.
Yes.
And they lock eyes, and he knows that Pacino's coming after him.
Okay.
And he has to make a decision. Am I going to go with her, or am I going to turn around and walk away?
Yes.
And he turns around and walks away. And
okay.
Yeah,
see, I feel like that would come more naturally for me than it should.
You can just easily drop things, maybe to an unhealthy level.
Too easily sometimes.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, so you get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, who knows what we'll get into on this podcast.
Hey, man. We could spend hours out here. I'd be fine with it.
But this was I'd be fine with it too. But this is a question I wanted to ask you. So you're into actually a lot of things. So we're here. You're showing us some of the bourbons you've got. You're sort of a bourbon connoisseur. You're into Eli Mason. You've got Made South. You see all of these different makers and artisans and what they're doing. You're a fan of the South. I feel like you've got your fingers into a lot of different things, both at a business level and a cultural level. I mean, what excites you the most right now?
Macarons? No. Have you ever had a macaron?
I have had a macaron.
Man, they're delicious.
They are delicious.
They do excite me, but man, that's a hard question. I'm admittedly an easily excitable person.
Okay.
I've had to temper that over the years. It used to be that I would get excited about any little idea, and man, I was just off to the races. Like, here's how it's going to work, and here's what we're going to do. And but what I what I quickly learned when I left Dave's and started my own thing is that are you an idea guy?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Here's what I had to learn about myself, and I think it's true about a lot of idea people, but I know it's true about me. I think all my ideas are great.
Yes.
And it's just not the truth.
Yep.
It's not the truth. And so, but, you know, when we started, well, it's my first time out on my own. So it's almost like the fresh 18-year-old at college.
Yep.
And I've got my first taste of freedom. I've spent 12 years working for someone else and implementing their ideas, and feeling, you know, for the last couple of years of that role, like, man, I'm not being utilized the right way. I feel like I'm more of a creative. I'm more of an idea person than I'm being allowed to play that role. And so I'm just going to go out here and go crazy. And all of my ideas are awesome. And now it's my business.
Yes.
And it's my money. And I can write the check. And I'm small. And I'm limber. And I'm fast. Not physically, but you know what I mean. And then, and so we're just going to do all of these ideas.
Yep.
Because they're all awesome. And nobody can tell me no. And what I quickly found out is, like, out of 10 ideas that we would try to execute, 2 of them would be good. Sure. 2 of them would work. And the other 8 just spent money. It was like they came in and cut the knees out from underneath the 2 good ones. And so I've had to temper that, you know, my excitement about certain things over the years.
What did you do when you found the other 8 things that were cutting out the 2 successful ones? How did you come to identify those? Because that is actually something that I think everyone can relate to. And sometimes we actually get attached to like 1 or 2 of the other things that we really should cut, but we're attached to it. We think it's sort of core to our business and part of the, you know, the main brand or whatever. So when you tried to do 10 things and 8 of them you just needed to stop, how did you identify that they needed to be stopped? And then how did you go about?
Well, the 8 that needed to be stopped were, I feel like, were pretty evident because they were just costing me money, and they weren't working. I mean, to like really make it super simple, those 8 were not working.
I see. Yep.
And so you know, especially as a small business guy who's not, you know, is not venture capital funded.
Yep.
I've got a finite amount of money here that I've saved up to go start something.
Yep.
And holy cow, if these 8, looking back, bad ideas are eating up that capital that I've saved up, I really don't have a choice. I need to cut those pretty quickly. So it's not like, oh, this, you know, I marvel at the people like Uber and, you know, fill in the blank, the people who still to this day haven't turned a profit and yet have a valuation of however many hundreds of billions of dollars and their annual revenues are. I don't fully understand that world and how all of that works when you've never actually made money.
Yep.
That blows my mind a little bit. Yeah, it's a different world. And it's a world I don't play in, so I don't grasp that.
Yes.
My world is much smaller, and if we do things, they have to make money because I have fun doing what I do. I want to continue doing what I want to do. And if I kept those 8 around, we wouldn't be doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I'd be back behind a cubicle somewhere.
Makes total sense. I think of like with real estate, I think it's smart to know if you're investing in real estate, if it's a cash flow play or an appreciation play. Like if you want this property to kick off some cash every month, or you're okay with it not kicking off cash, you just want to one day sell it for more than you bought it for.
Right.
I think businesses are the same way. Like I think of businesses, generally speaking, as dropping into one of those 2 categories, cash flow or appreciation.
So Uber, you would say, is an appreciation
Uber is going to
play.
be more of an appreciation play. They're getting the mass market, the data, you know, just they're getting in so many people's lives. That is actually worth something, and they may sell or they may not, but it tends to be more of an appreciation play versus like what you're doing is probably more of a cash flow play.
I have to feed 4 kids and pay light bills and things like that.
Yes, totally. So you are taking a class at the Entrepreneur Center in Nashville.
Yeah, I am.
And can you say what that class is, a little bit more about it, and then I'm curious to hear sort of what's standing out to you, what you're learning in that class. Because We've talked about it before briefly, and it sounds like a really great class.
So it's called Catalyst. It is put on by the Entrepreneur Center. The Entrepreneur Center, I believe, was founded in 2009, maybe 2010, by a guy named Michael Burcham. He was the founding president and chief executive of the Entrepreneur Center. So he is the guy who, my understanding, he brought the idea to the city of Nashville, said we need this, partnered with them to help launch that thing. If you Google Michael Burcham, Burcham, you'll quickly find out he is widely considered to be one of the crown jewels of the business community in Nashville.
Yes.
The guy is ridiculously smart. He is, impressive is a word that stands out. Michael doesn't remember this, but, 2012, I was working for Dave. One of my advertisers, Churchill Mortgage, decided that they were celebrating their 25th anniversary as a company, or maybe 20th anniversary, one of the two. And they decided to celebrate. They wanted to host a young entrepreneurs contest. And so they set it up. They promoted it. People submitted their ideas for new businesses. And the winner got, I think, a $10,000 check. They got, Entree Leadership. They got to go through Entree Leadership Masterclass with Dave. Yeah. They got some type of relationship with the Entrepreneur Center, the EC. So whether it was temporary office space or going through their, I don't think it's called Jumpstart, but their launch program. And so Mike Hardwick, who's the founder and CEO of Churchill, and then his COO, Matt Clark, they asked me to be part of the 5-person panel that would it was almost like a Shark Tank Live.
Oh,
we
cool.
were in a hotel room.
Okay.
Had a big long table laid out.
Okay.
People would come in periodically throughout the day. It was like every half hour for 3 days.
Wow.
And we'd meet them, we'd talk to them, we'd ask questions, we'd make notes, and then we all voted at the end of the thing and picked a winner.
Oh, wow. I've never heard this.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
That is cool.
And but one of the meetings that we had, Mike said, hey, let's go meet with Michael Burcham, who I believe he has a relationship with. And I'd never heard of Michael before then. And he said he, recently in the last year or two has started the EC. And so let's go see if we can partner with them a little bit and they can kick something in, for this winter. And so I spent maybe 20 minutes just sitting there listening to the 3 guys who knew what they were talking about talk.
Yeah.
And but I was like, man, this guy, there's something special about that guy.
Yeah.
And so then being part of this class today, it's every other Wednesday for 8 months in the classroom, 3 hours. Michael teaches it personally. And then for the next 8 months, we do what's called a forum where, excuse me, they pair us up into groups of like 5 or 6, and you spend every other week in the same group, working together through issues that you have. So right now we're in that first 8-month phase where every other Wednesday, Michael's spending 3 hours talking about team building or how to build your business plan, how to dissect your existing plan and figure out where the rough spots are, where the weaknesses in your business plan are. It's a whole curriculum that the EC and Michael have created together, and it's about, I think there are 40 of us in the class.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had to go to a couple of meetings and meet people, and then had to fill out an application and kind of tell them, what kind of revenue we're doing and how profitable we are and things like that, because this program is for a very specific range of businesses that have met a certain threshold but haven't yet gotten to a different threshold.
Got it.
And so, man, what am I getting out of that?
Yeah, what are you learning?
Every class I leave completely overwhelmed because I realize how many things I've done wrong. And I go, it's just by the grace of God that I'm still here doing this somehow.
Yeah.
And I leave with a list that is like pages long of things that I need to do to get better at this stuff. And but it's expensive, both in terms of the money that I had to pay to go through the class, and the time that I have to dedicate to it. But it's one of the greatest things I feel like I've done for our business.
Do you feel like you're finding information there in this group that is somewhat proprietary, which is probably not the correct word, but you're finding information in this group you probably couldn't find anywhere else? Or if you read the right books, you looked the right places, you could find this information out there, but who knows where to look? We don't always know the right questions to ask. And just by nature of being in the class, you're forced to ask yourself the right questions and get the information.
I think it's the second one. I think I don't know that any of this is, that word proprietary.
Yeah.
I think it's invaluable to have a guy like Michael teaching it who this is not theory to him. Now, he is a professor at Vanderbilt, so he teaches a class over there as well, but it's not theory to him. He has done this stuff, and you've spent time with these guys. There are certain guys or ladies in your life, if you've spent time with them, and you go, they know what they're talking about. They know. It's not an idea. It's not just, I keep going back to the word theory, but it's real things that they've practiced and they've succeeded with, and these are proven things. And most of it is laying that really good foundation for a good business plan to be built on top of it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that, but then that, it's pretty involved, and like you leave just going, this guy, there's so much knowledge in his head about business. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Well, I just think some people are natural operators.
Yeah.
Natural business operators.
Yeah.
You just got it. And not that the rest of us can't get better, because we can. But, man, some people just seem to be born with that X factor. So I don't want to steal your thunder as it relates to the EC class and what you might be learning, but I did want to ask you a little bit more about the thing of core competency, because you had texted me something about core competency.
Yeah.
And that was actually helpful for me, because I've referenced it a couple of times since then, and I've got it here, so you don't need to worry about quoting the definition by memory, but their definition of a core competency was basically a deep proficiency that allows you to deliver unique value, and it's a strength or a competitive advantage. But what I really liked was them saying it's usually rare, valuable, hard to imitate, and sustainable. So I thought of that a few times since you've texted that to me a few weeks ago, just with the various things we have going on when it comes to a business decision about starting something or cutting something or changing something, thinking about what is our core competency and how does this relate to that. So how has that, have you made changes based on thinking through your core competency and your company's? How has that sort of idea of focusing on a core competency helped you?
Yeah, I have made changes, and I'm still making those changes. I'm an ever evolving thing, Kent. That was a really, really difficult question for me, because we don't, Michael comes from a technology-focused healthcare world. A lot of people in this class are very product-based. They offer a software as a service, or they offer something, that is unique to them, something they invented and created. And a lot of times, if they can get a customer to buy this product, it performs a function for that customer. And so it's a technology, or it's one of those things, a product. And we're not that, at least not for our main thing right now, which is Made South. We don't really make anything. We get people together who make things, and we want to involve them in the events that we do. But I had to go, well, what is our core competency? And it was a little bit weird for me, because I can't say, well, our core competency is, we make this thing and it functions this way and it plugs in and it solves this problem. It's a big thing that they talk about in this class a lot. It's like, what problem are you solving for your customers?
Yep.
And I go, well, when I put on a whiskey event, what problem am I solving for people?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to think about hey, pay $100-something bucks and come eat a bunch of delicious food.
Yeah.
And drink some whiskey and have fun with your friends. I'm not solving a problem there. I'm not making healthcare better for someone or, fill in the blank. And so, what I had to kind of come to terms with is that our core competencies are more wrapped up, I think, in the person that I am, which is I'm highly relational. I love people. I love making connections. I'm not some hard salesperson. I only want people to do things with us that they feel really good about, and if they don't feel good about them, man, that is okay. And we will still be friends, and I'm never going to be the guy that slams a phone down on somebody because somebody told me no about anything. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
And so I think, really thinking through it, I think those are our core competencies. We're really relational as a brand. We really care about the people who we do business with. And, I don't know if it's like a core competency, but we love the South. I mean, we love Southern culture, the food, the people, the whiskey, the art, the music, literature, all of those things that come out of Southern culture. Yeah. That's the area that we play in. So I guess that's how I've thought about core competencies.
I think that makes total sense. I mean, I can see it based on my probably limited understanding of your events, but you have the holiday market. You're bringing in makers. You're bringing people that want to shop those makers. You're making that an experience. Yeah. Whiskey Society. You're bringing in bourbon people. You're bringing in food people. You're bringing in people that want to experience them, and you're giving them a real experience. Slider Showdown. You're bringing in chefs. You're bringing in people that want to taste their food. You're making an experience. Like, there is a common thread through all of that. Yeah. And I would challenge you on you're not solving a problem, because having only been to the Whiskey Society one time, me and a buddy went, and I think we both felt like we were able to it felt like we were getting into that world a little more, because he and I both drink bourbon, but we don't know anything about that world. Yeah. So we can come to your event and feel like we understand it a little bit more. We can discover things. Yeah. This Kentucky owl being one of them. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't on either of our radars. But so anyhow, we're getting off track. But
here's to finish your question, or to answer the second half: has it impacted how we do business? I've had to figure out, okay, what are the things that I can do where I can stay in a highly relational role? Yes. That I can stay in a curate is such an overused word, but like a highly curatorial, is that a word? I just made it up if it's not a word. It is now. That I can stay in that role. Yes. And so that means that, like, for me going forward, I'm trying to get out of event production and the logistics and things of that nature. Yes. And invest in more talent to do that for me. Yep. So I can be more involved in developing great partnerships, which I'm really good at, and I love doing that. And I can still be a part of who are the chefs, who are the makers, who are the distillers. I very much want to be involved in, and I think I'm good at figuring out what does this puzzle need to look like, and invite the different pieces into it to make sure that puzzle comes to life. Yes, totally agree. So I want to kind of nerd out on I love nerding out. Social media a little bit. Okay. We had this discussion the other day just very briefly, but I didn't have the time to ask you all the questions that I wanted to ask you. Social media. So because some people will think social media is like the end all be all. It's the key to success. You get social media. Every company needs to just have the best social media ever. And I don't believe that. I think it depends on your company. I think it depends on your demographic and a lot of things. However, when you're in a type of company that you certainly are, and that some of ours certainly are, social media has become a big, big, big deal. Yeah. And you've done what seems to me really, really good at that. So let's talk about Made South social media. So you started Made South in 2013 or 14? 14. 2014. Golly. You started Made South in 2014. You were running, let's just use Instagram, for example, because that's the one I use the most. Well, let me ask this. Does Made South have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook? Yep. And LinkedIn? Well, I'm personally on LinkedIn, but I think of LinkedIn as more of a personal,
I do too.
business focused.
Yes, I do too. Okay, so those are the accounts that Made South is using.
Mm-hmm.
And you've grown Made South now to like pretty dang close to 40,000 followers. Let me start sort of at the end, and then we'll work our way back to how you got there. How do you see that benefiting you today? Made South with 40,000 followers, essentially. What does that do for your business? What are the benefits you're getting from that?
You're not going to like my answer.
Okay.
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
I don't think it does a whole lot for us. I don't think it does a whole lot for our business, meaning selling tickets.
Mm-hmm.
If you zoom out from that and go, okay, if a potential partner looks at our feed and goes, oh, wait a minute, 38,000, 39, there's a perception there.
Yes.
That, and the truth is, we've never paid for a single follower. It's been 100% organic.
Mm-hmm.
I truly can't answer the question what we did to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But so from that perception part of it, a partner could look at it, and so I think it does help us overall.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody like a Mountain Valley Spring Water or Duke's Mayonnaise or somebody can look at it and go, oh, they have a growing platform, and it seems to grow every month, and so that is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a value that we can bring the people who participate in our events.
Right.
So there's a young man today, David Walt, who runs a company called Farmstrong here in Nashville, who's taking over. You've heard that term. Is doing an Instagram takeover for us today. Yep. We've given him the keys to our account from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and said, David, tell your story, share great pictures, tag yourself. We want people to discover who you are and learn about your story. And so that's a benefit I feel like, we can hand over to people who we work with.
Yes.
But as far as like selling tickets, selling product, I don't think there's a big impact there for us.
Okay, so you have the type of account where on stories someone can swipe up and buy a ticket essentially through Instagram, right? Does that happen some?
It does. Yeah, it does. But it's not it's not as significant. I mean, the thing that we can't tell, we can tell when somebody takes action.
Yeah.
We can't tell if once they took that action, did they actually make a purchase there? We can't tell that.
I see. Okay.
So I can see how many people swiped up on that or how many people clicked our profile. But I can't tell, well, once they did that, did they purchase a ticket?
Yes.
And I know that those numbers they're just not as big as people would think.
Right.
And so if 100% of those people, it's not a massive impact in terms of dollars spent.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And the numbers probably generally speaking on social media are not nearly like the concrete numbers are probably most often not nearly as high as people would like to think.
Sure.
But it's hard to quantify that partner that now is doing business with you because they thought you were legit because you had 40,000 followers.
I totally agree.
All those other things. Agree. Can you clarify partner for us? Do you mean sponsor or what do you mean there?
I mean, there are words that it's just a personal preference. I stay away from the word vendors at our events. I never want to say, we have 100 vendors at this event.
Okay.
We call them makers and artisans. That's the world we live in. And so that's the terminology we use. When we think about a sponsor, we call them a partner. And so they're presenting partners, supporting partners. That's automotive partners, water partners, things like that.
Yes. Okay. I actually wanted to ask you, because one of the things I think is really great that you let people share their story on your Instagram account for the day. How does that work? Are you giving them your login and they're posting whatever they want? Or are they sending you their posts a week ahead of time? You preview them, approve them, and then how does this work?
No. So, we've had conversations a lot about this because I'm gonna speak very candidly. Our company's name is Made South.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about loving the South, about loving Southern culture. There is a stigma that can come along with that, where there are some people, and it doesn't happen a lot, but every now and then, we will interact with someone online who says, oh, Made South, you must be racist. Right? Because I believe there is a big
Right.
part of the country who thinks
Yep.
if you're in the South, you're a dumb, racist redneck. And so we will have every now and then an interaction like that. And so I am very, very particular about who we give those keys to, because we've all read the stories about somebody who managed a Twitter profile for, let's make up, company ABC, who has 100,000 Twitter followers, and they're a well-known brand, and that person mixed up their personal account and a business account, and they posted something offensive on the company feed.
Yep.
And all crap breaks loose. And I never want that to happen. So I never want someone to make a joke that's in poor taste. And they think they're posting on their account, and they're not. They posted on our account.
Right.
Because that makes me very nervous.
Yep.
So we're very particular. We look at when we're going to hand over, or when we're going to let somebody do an Instagram takeover of our feed. I dig in pretty deep to see what types of things they've been posting.
Okay.
And even if it's in my case, I have the Made South feed, and I have my personal feed.
Yeah.
If I can track down the personal feed on the person who I know is going to be posting, I go and see, are they posting things that I would personally be okay with?
Yep.
So if they do mess up, is it going to be a pic of their kid, or is it going to be a photo of something that nobody should be posting online?
Yes.
And so I got to feel really comfortable, first of all, with handing the keys over to anybody. But then once I feel comfortable, we give them a unique password. So
okay.
Typically we only do that about 3 weeks leading up to an event. It fills a couple of needs for us. This is our crazy time. 3 weeks before an event, everything ratchets up, everything ramps up. We become highly sensitive to everything. We're just 90 miles a minute. But I still need to provide content, and I still need to remind people, hey, we have an event coming up. And so by handing the keys over to somebody like David today, I can say, dude, share your story and just mention that you're going to be at the event.
Yes.
And so it takes that off my plate for the day.
Okay.
So I can't take their photos and their texts and go in and remind myself and copy and paste and post. I don't want to do any of that.
Yes.
They need to be the ones doing it, but I have to feel really comfortable with who I'm giving that password to.
Okay.
And we change that password.
Okay.
So David's password today is different than who it's going to be tomorrow or the day after that.
Okay, gotcha.
And we just have to be diligent to be on top of that.
And that's something you can just do on the back end of Instagram.
Yes.
You can just change your password really easily.
Yep. And then everybody gets an email that morning. Here's your password. They don't get it, until about an hour before their takeover begins.
Okay.
So they're not like logging in the night before and reading my DMs and stuff, which I don't. There's nothing.
But in theory, they could. I mean, in theory, they have access.
They can read all of my
Instagram
DMs.
account.
Right. David can get into my Instagram feed right now, and he can look at every direct message I've ever received. Huh. He can see the people I've blocked who have made comments like what I just told you about. He could see everything. He could see the number of clicks this post got or whatever. I just go, man, the benefit of not having to worry about it.
Yes.
And being able to provide him a little bit of a platform to share his story.
Yes.
And to know that there's content being actively put out there, and I'm not the one having to do it or pay for it.
Yep.
And truly, in a lot of cases, that person's paying us for it. Not a lot, but it's something that I go, okay, I know you're serious about it, and you're going to take it seriously, and you're going to think through it and do a good job of what you present to people.
Yes.
Those benefits outweigh the risk of, man, you get to see how many clicks were on this post or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so you're basically looking at the information, making a judgment call. Yes or no, am I going to allow this person or this company to take over my site for the day? But if it's a yes, you just let them do it.
Yeah.
And if it's a no, it's a no. That's interesting because that goes along with Bill is going to be giving a talk at our conference in March, which people need to buy their tickets if they haven't yet.
Gospel Business Strategies
Conference, Nashville, March. Bill Hampton's going to be giving a talk, and one of his points is essentially, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but that in the hiring process, the money is made at the point of purchase, essentially. When you talk about making an investment or whatever, you're going to buy that. You didn't make your money when you buy the investment because you're going to sell it at whatever the market's at. He's saying, hey, hiring great people is essentially the same thing. Like, you need to figure out, are they great or not? If they're great, hire them, and if they're not, don't. But when you hire them, you sort of need to let them run, you know. And it's a principle that I totally agree with the key leaders that we've hired. It's just you're actually saying the same thing with these people. Like, you're not going to micromanage them. You're not going to preview their content.
No.
You know, you're not going to copy and paste. You just figure out if they're good or not.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I like it. Do you currently run your Made South social media accounts, or just someone else?
I do.
You do yourself.
Yep.
How much time does that would you say?
Way too much. I hate it.
Okay.
It is a man. It's a double-edged sword, if that's the right term, and I think it is. It takes up so much time. It keeps me connected to this thing, which I freaking hate. Can I say freaking on the Gospel Business Strategies podcast? I hate that phone.
Yep.
I hate devices. I hate what they do to me. And I want to get as far away from it as possible. There are some solutions to solve for that a little bit by sitting at a desktop and planning out your posts and scheduling them for exactly when you want them to go live, both on Twitter and Facebook. Currently, as far as I know, and maybe somebody will hear this and be like, yo, you can do this. That doesn't exist for Instagram.
It does exist.
Where you can schedule and it will actively post it for you?
My knowledge on this is yes, but not for video. Yes, for pictures, not for video.
Okay.
Now, you know a lot more about Instagram than I do,
yeah.
But I believe that our marketing company, Well Refined, is using, I can't even say who they're using. I mean, I want to say Buffer, but I could totally be wrong.
So Buffer is the thing that I have used, and to my knowledge, Buffer does not allow that. What Buffer allows me to do, which is a little bit of a help, is I can go into Buffer and write out the post and upload the photo and get everything ready, and then I can click basically a button that says, okay, we're going to send you a reminder. And so then at 8 p.m. or whatever time I want to post, it will remind me, and I open up the app, and it will auto-populate the post, and I click it, and it goes. But I still have to actively be involved.
I mean, that's probably the case.
When I want the post to go live.
Okay, so whoever's listening to this and knows more about Instagram,
I would love to
than
know.
us, yeah.
I would really pay good money if there is an active scheduler that I can write the post on Instagram, both video and photo, and it needs to be usable for stories as well.
Yes.
And you need to be able to add that hyperlink and that swipe up and all those things.
Yep.
But if I can write that at 9 a.m. and it doesn't go out until 8 p.m. and I don't have to be near this phone when it goes live, I would love that.
Yep.
Because I want to come home and have my wife take this thing away and not think about it until 8 a.m. the next morning.
Yep.
But right now I go, some of our peak times are 7:30, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And so you're like, that's a good time to post for an event.
How have you developed knowledge around peak times?
Instagram gives you all of that. They have really good metrics, So if you, and I don't know if you have to turn something on.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you have to have a business feed.
Probably.
I don't know if you have to have.
You probably have to have 40,000 followers.
No, I don't think so. But the swipe up thing is like, I think you have to have 10,000 followers to get the swipe up functionality.
Yes, you're totally right.
I don't know if the metrics side of it, here come our dogs. I don't know if the metrics side of it are the same way. Okay. Where, you have to have a certain number of followers and then you get access to that data.
Yeah.
But right now, like, I can see the number 1 hour when our followers are actively online.
I see.
I can see our peak days of the week. I can tell you our top 5 cities. I can tell you the countries. I can tell you male, female, the age demographic, everything.
Oh,
I can
fascinating.
tell you a lot of information.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
So, would you say an hour a day that you're spending on social media if you had to really?
On most days, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, most days, yes. But like today, I haven't posted anything because David is doing the takeover, and I don't want to interfere with that. So I don't want there to be a story about David, and then I come in there with, "Hey, I just had a great hamburger," and then David, that feels a little bit weird. So I stay out of their way.
Yep.
But like tonight, David's takeover will end at 6 p.m. Central, and 7:30, 8 o'clock, a couple of hours after his last post, I'll come in there with something about the event.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, I'll hit Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll hit the big ones.
Okay. So one more question. I'm sorry. People are probably like, I'll move on already. But in your opinion, how many...
those people, I would say, calm down. This is Kent's podcast. We can talk about whatever we want to.
I'm about to talk about your dogs because we didn't talk about on this podcast. We're actually sitting in your barn in your backyard looking over the country hillside. It's just beautiful. And those look like German Shepherds.
They are, yeah.
They're beautiful dogs.
The one on the left, if you can tell, his left eye is gone.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to tell because, he's got those black eyes, but he looks like he's constantly winking at you.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He looks like he's wise.
He is he's an old soul. Those are two of the friendliest dogs you'll ever meet in your life.
They're beautiful. How many posts will you allow to go out on Made South Instagram in a day before it's like that's too many?
If it's just me, so I think you have regular posts and then you have stories.
Yes.
And I think you can be I'm starting to think more, I can't remember who said this, but it's not original to me, that the main feed is like that's your business feed.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories can be more personal. They don't have to be as polished. I'm thinking more about it in those terms.
Mm-hmm.
But on the main feed, on a normal day, I would say it's 2 posts max.
Okay.
Most days probably just 1.
Okay.
But there may be 1 in the morning and then 1 in the evening.
Okay.
But like today, I mean, if we pulled up the feed, David's probably posted.
I figured today he'd posted a few times, and it sounded like you were going to post a time or so yet tonight. So
I'll probably do once tonight.
Okay.
But he has posted 4 times today.
Okay.
And it's 2:00. He'll probably post 1, maybe 2 more times in the next 4 hours.
Okay.
And then I'll do it again. So today there will be 7.
Wow.
6 to 7
And
posts.
have you ever gotten feedback like, geez, let us alone already, that's way too much?
If all of those posts were saying, hey, buy tickets to our event, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's the nature of a takeover.
Yeah.
That people expect, okay, this person is taking over the feed for a day, and they have a finite amount of time to share their story with us.
Yes.
And they know that can't be accomplished in 1 post. And so I think there are people, if they know it's a takeover by a different brand, they expect more posts on that day.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay, shifting subjects. I want to ask you a little bit about sales because one of your strengths now you mentioned is finding partners and partnerships with your Made South events and so on. And I think I could use the term sort of selling them on your idea. They're paying you money to be a partner. And you're really great at that. And you have all this experience. Was it 12 years you were with Dave Ramsey's company, and you were essentially selling sponsorships at a national level, correct?
Yeah.
So you've got experience and you've got the competency in that area. So that's why I'm really curious to ask you about it. Actually, I just had a conversation yesterday with someone saying, asking us if we have any resources for sales for Christians, for believers specifically, which he wasn't assuming that there's a Christian way to do sales. I think he was just saying, I'm looking for resources for me and my team. I'd love to get them from someone that I know sort of shares my values. And so you would not want to do sales just for the money or to sort of be sort of the used car salesman, just out looking out for yourself. I mean, that's the furthest thing. So I feel like you look at sales the right way. So how do you look at sales? What's your process? Take, for example, you're going to contact a partner and you've not, this is your first point of contact. Can you sort of walk us through your mentality on sales in general and how you kind of go about your process?
Man, it's kind of got to document my secret sauce a little bit. No,
hey, that's what I'm here for, bro.
I'm kidding. There is absolutely no secret sauce involved here except for what's in these bottles. Man, I've never thought about this as a process. I know what I do.
I'll interject for 1 second. The people that are naturally good at things never do.
I have never, ever thought about.
Yeah, it's because you're naturally good at it.
This is my sales process. I And another thing, I process out loud.
Yeah.
So because I've never had a process,
I'm
just gonna
this would be a great
start
spot to
verbally
do it.
talking.
Your barn will be as good a spot as any.
All right. Here's what I do. I'm involved in the Southern culture space. All right. I want to partner with brands that fit what we do. Mm-hmm. All right. So my role, 12 years with Dave, he ingrained it in me. It does not matter what amount of money the deal will pay me. If it's not something that I would ever personally recommend for my mom or my sister, these are Dave's words, I won't do it. Doesn't matter for any amount of money. And I'll tell you a true story. I don't know that I've ever told it publicly. Prepaid Legal. Are you familiar with them?
I have heard of Prepaid Legal.
Okay.
That's been a while ago, right?
What do you mean?
Prepaid Legal?
I don't know if they're still around.
I feel like
I
heard about it when I was actually a while, from a neighbor when we lived in New York, which was over 5 years ago.
This has been easily 10 years ago that this happened.
Yeah. It's the Prepaid Legal I'm thinking of.
Okay. Prepaid Legal is a multi-level marketing company. Absolutely nothing wrong with MLMs. Not my cup of tea. But Dave would always say, hey, I'm not going to promote an MLM. It's just not his speed. Mm-hmm. And the second thing he would say is prepaid legal is not an evil thing. It's not immoral, but it's not a good deal for the consumer. Most people, if they take that $19 or $29 a month that they're going to pay, most people will never need to pay that amount in legal fees in their life. So he would say, don't buy prepaid legal, save that money. Excuse me. And in true Dave Ramsey fashion, when you need an attorney, just hire the attorney to write the agreement or whatever you need them to do.
Yep.
And pay them, and don't keep shelling out 30 or 40 or 50 bucks a month for a service you will likely not use that much.
Yes.
And so prepaid legal was a big thing in the office that was kind of our benchmark for like, we would never do prepaid legal. All right. We never do that. Somehow that got out. And so prepaid legal contacted me one time. They were like, hey, we want Dave to endorse us. And I was the same way I always am, like, hey guys, thank you. But it's just not a good fit for Dave. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with your product. He doesn't think you're evil. He's not going to go rail against you. He just thinks it's a bad deal for the consumer. Most people won't ever utilize it to make their money back on the deal. Mm-hmm. He thinks about it, like he thinks about a lot of things. Just pay for it when you need it. They mailed me a check for $1 million.
Wow.
$1 million. And Dave said, send the check back. So I sent the check back.
It was a good check.
It was a good check.
For $1 million.
From prepaid legal for $1 million.
Wow.
And he said, send the check back. I'm not going to do the deal. He would never, the money needs to be right on any deal. It's got to be, you're both showing value in that deal. Mm-hmm. But he would always say, I will never, ever do a deal just because of money. Mm-hmm. Never. It has to be a good fit. It has to be right. That's been ingrained in me. It's the way I think about everything we do. It has to be a good fit. So I mean, go after is such like a basic term, but I do. I think about, I have been a fan of Mountain Valley for years. Mm-hmm. I've loved their bottle. I've loved their story. They're based out of Arkansas. They fit with what we do. The packaging is beautiful. The product is good. And they are what I consider to be one of those iconic Southern brands. When I think about, Lily White Flower, or when I think about Goo Goo Clusters or Moon Pie, RC, Mountain Valley, there are some kind of legacy Southern brands. Mm-hmm. And I consider them to be one of them. And so they were on, Duke's Mayonnaise is one of those. Like, it's a heritage brand. It's been around forever. They make a great product. The packaging is awesome. That's who I go after. I go, who would I just be tickled to death to say, we're working with so-and-so.
Okay.
And then I just, usually, this is maybe one of those benefits to the followers on Instagram, is normally my first point of contact is on Instagram. I've been following a feed for a while. It was this way with Mountain Valley. I was following their feed on Instagram for a while. I never just like click follow and then instantly message them and go, hey, can we work together?
Yes.
But it's somebody who I've been following for a while. I naturally, not on purpose, like some of their photos because I love their brand, and that's an awesome photo, and so I'm gonna like that. And people notice that. I mean, I notice it. There are people I could name you a list of 25 people who actively like a lot of our posts and are commenting, are engaged with what we do, and who are fans of what we do. And so I'm maybe not that level, but I'm actively participating in their feed.
Yes.
And then, I will literally comment on a post and say, hey, guys, I would love to run an idea by you. What's the best way to reach out? And I would say 8 out of 10 times I get a response within 24 hours saying, hey, email this person or call this person, or somebody, they'll DM me and they'll say, hey, we saw your comment. Would love to talk. Here's how to get in touch.
But you're leaving it as a comment.
I'm leaving it as a comment on a post. I typically go a couple of weeks deep. I'll find an older post.
Okay.
I don't want it to be one of their fresh new ones.
Right.
And that's typically how I reach out. And then it is just hey, we love your brand and we believe in what you do, and we would be honored to work with you in some way. And here's what we do. We create these events. We create these podcasts. Here's what we're working on. If there's I would love to show you everything we're doing. And if there's a way that you feel like you would want to be involved in some of these things, and I'm candid with them on the front end, like these are paid partnerships. We need to make money on this deal. But we don't, I use Dave's words, we don't do anything just because of money. Like we pick out people who we really want to work with and who we believe in their brands, and they seem like really good people. And as we get to know them, we find out they either are good people or they're not. And then we kind of go from there. But that's typically how I do it. And I'm very open. Like, if you don't want to do any of this, if you want to tell me to go pound sand, that is entirely okay. And I will still be a massive Duke's mayonnaise fan. Period. Right. Yep. I'm not going to go pitching another mayonnaise brand because you tell me you're not going to work. Like, there is this freedom that they have where they go, well, you're telling me if I don't pay you money, you're still going to talk about us and be a big fan. There is like a little bit of a, we could probably trust this guy. He's not just trying to sell us something,
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yes. You're not trying to leverage them into the sale.
No.
By saying, hey, you're looking for a mayonnaise guy, you think they'd be a great fit. And if you say no, I got someone else lined up. Yeah. So you're not doing that. So you'll leave a comment on an Instagram post and they'll say, great, email. And they'll give you an email. When you send an email, let's just say for a partnership, keep it real simple, like partnership, or what also commonly referred to as like a sponsorship for one of your events, right? Because you have partnerships or sponsorships for your event,
absolutely.
Right? So let's say you're asking someone for a partnership to one of your events.
And I'm not offended if you use the word sponsor. So for terms of our conversation,
I like the partnership, by the way. I love that. I love it. Will you send an initial email, and how much information you give in the initial email?
Very, very little. Very little. I tell them who I am. I give them a link to our website. I say, here's what we do. We create events that we feel like celebrate the best of the South.
Okay.
The 5 categories we focus on are makers, food, drink, music, and art.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of your brand. I would love to find a way to work with you. Are you okay if I put together a simple one sheet on everything we're doing, and you can tell me, Chris, this sounds really interesting, and this sounds interesting, but this one not so much, and this one does too. We'd love to see details on these 3 things, but not these 3 things. Okay, then I'll put together a more detailed deck. I'll lay out everything on those 3 things that you want to take a look at.
Yep.
Metrics, people attending, the demographics, the average ticket price, what states they're coming from, how I feel like you're a good fit, ideas on how we could work your brand, integrate your brand into the event experience, and then it's essentially, if you want to do this, awesome. And if not, man, that's cool too. We're still going to love you.
Yes. Okay.
It's not a big deal.
Is the one sheet going out in the initial email?
No.
No. Okay. You're saying, here's what I'm doing. Would you be interested? And they say, gosh, we'd be interested.
I literally, my first email asks, it's so short and it asks for permission. I say, here's who we are. Like, here's who I am. Our business creates events that celebrate the best of the South in these 5 categories. Mm-hmm. We would love to work with you. Are you okay if I send you a one sheet that gives you super basic details on everything we're doing, every podcast we're doing, every event we're doing, and then you tell me what you're interested in exploring? I love the word explore, by the way. One of my favorite words. You tell me what you're interested in exploring with us.
Yeah.
And then I can put together more detailed information decks for you to take a look at on those things, only the things that you're really interested in exploring.
Yes. Fascinating. Is this similar to your process when you were with Dave Ramsey's company?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you would essentially do the same thing the same way.
Yeah. Here's who Dave is. Here's what he's about.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I'll say I really only did that the first couple of years. Once I kind of got the snowball rolling with Dave, I was fortunate enough to keep that show essentially sold out for a long period of time. And most of the relationships that I built came to us.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, either this is a good fit, but hey, we don't have any space available. So let you and I, Kent, you're reaching out and you're interested in working with Dave, but we don't have a spot for you right now. But I like you and I like what you're doing. So let's stay in touch. And if something does become available, I'm going to give you a call.
I see.
Or, hey, Kent, you're awesome, but what you do is not a good fit for Dave. So
thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks. This is just not good.
So you would have to do enough of the contacting or the cold calls in a sense.
I didn't do any cold calling,
as in on the phone, but you did some contacting. You took the initiative a little bit to begin with
for the first couple of years.
But then enough momentum's built, and they're calling you.
And after that, it was like, I mean, I did some in the latter years, but it was more grand ideas that I was like, oh man, it'd be awesome if we could get this designer to outfit Dave. When we're launching a video channel, let's start putting Dave in some really great clothes and form some type of, endorsement partnership exclusively for the video channel, something like that, where I would go, well, who are the designers that make sense? Well, Billy Reed is a Southern dude, lives 2.5 hours down the road in the Shoals. I could see Dave getting into that. Dave's a Southern gentleman. He that fits him.
Yep.
So let's reach out to Billy Reed and see if we can form some type of partnership there.
I see.
I'm making that one up, but that kind of thing.
Yes, that makes total sense. Where do you see most people going wrong with sales in general?
I just think they think too one-sided. It has to be a natural. I think they're trying to force something. It is by nature. Sales is a very financially driven role, and there's nothing wrong with that. But and I think it depends on if you're selling sheds to people who need sheds. Or if you're forming brand partnerships, that's a different dance, where somebody walks in and says, hey, I need a shed. Sell them a deadgum shed, period. But if I'm engaging another brand and I'm trying to get them to invest in an event that we're doing and pay us money to be a part of the event, that has to be a really good fit for them. Otherwise, it's that I think is it Bill that no, it's not Bill. I would always say it to Bill that we can shear a sheep until it dies, but you can only skin it once. And so I always want to do a deal that's like it's
that's pretty good.
I've
never heard that term.
Oh,
I like it.
I used to tell him that because he and I, and we could probably talk about this now, but he and I every year, we would sit down and we would have a lengthy conversation about how to address advertising rates for the oncoming year.
Okay.
And it was always a foregone conclusion. Rates were going up, period. The audience had grown. It was worth more today than it was a year ago, or it is worth more today than it was a year ago. So rates are going to go up. But the question was, how much were they going to go up? And so Bill was always a huge fan of the more the better. Like, hey, if we can take it up 50%, 100%, let's double it. What? And I would always say, Bill, like, hey, let's keep in mind here, these are really good relationships, and they will be with us for a long time if we treat them the right way. And I absolutely believe it's worth more today than it was a year ago. So rates need to go up. But let's not just go in there and just, hey, if the audience went up 52%, our rates are going up 52%.
Sure. Yep.
If the audience went up 52%, well, let's increase it 25%.
Yeah.
Because 50%, that's a big increase
sure.
annually.
Yep.
So let's go up, maybe not. And that was always a constant battle. And when I use the word battle, I don't mean that negatively.
Right.
It was constantly something we were wrestling through. Like, what is the right number here? But Bill was always the one pulling the rates higher.
Yep.
And I was always on the other end, like kind of trying to balance him out.
Yep.
And telling him, hey, we can share them for years and years. If we just take a little bit here, take a little bit here. But man, when we skin them,
yep,
they're going to die.
Yeah.
They're going to go away, and they're not going to be able to pay us anymore.
Yeah, that's a great quote. I'm gonna keep that.
You never heard that?
I've never heard that.
I don't
but
think
I like
made
it a lot.
It
I mean, it applies. It does apply to that, and applies to, I feel like, a lot of things. So I like it a lot.
I feel like the redneck side of me is probably what gave me that. I've heard that somewhere in my redneck.
I mean, maybe it's a Southern term, but I like it. I like it a lot. I'm gonna have to keep moving here to get through. I want to get through a couple others. So
this is gonna be your longest podcast ever.
So, you've built Made South from nothing. So, as you think about how that went, taking something from 0 to 1, essentially, what is your advice to someone who's thinking about potentially doing the same thing, starting something from nothing?
Don't do it.
Well, and maybe your advice ends at that. But as you think about what you went through, what do you say to someone that wants to sort of go through the same process?
Yeah, so I'm kidding by saying don't do it. I would never say that. In fact, I would say the opposite. Man, I don't believe that I planned very well for launching a business. It's really hard to do that when you've never done it before. When you've been behind a cubicle, behind a desk, inside sales job for 12 years. It's really hard to appropriately plan out the launch of something new.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to solve for problems that you've never experienced before. And I still say it probably once a week. I don't know what I don't know. If I've never experienced it before, I've never had to solve for it. So I would say plan really well, but I think that's an impossible thing to do. You just don't know. You don't know what you're going to get into. I wish I'd had somebody with me. Like my wife definitely was. I mean, we are 50-50 in life and everything. But starting something was squarely on my shoulders and mine alone. And then we homeschool, so she has that thing going on. She's managing the home, and she is educating, at the time, 3 kids and now 4. And so I truly believe, I'm not patronizing when I say she has a much harder job than I have.
Yes.
But I wish I had somebody, not a co-founder, because I don't know that those relationships work all that often. Co-founders, and that's something I've learned from Michael. He's got a lot of data on that. But somebody, a lieutenant, a left arm, somebody to, okay, here's the hill we're gonna take. Let's go take this hill. Somebody to be there 8 to 6 every day as we were starting that thing. Somebody to be a sounding board, to go, that person who can filter the ideas a little bit and go, okay, wait a minute, Chris, I know that all of your ideas are great, but maybe they're not. And so let's see if we can think through this a little bit more and figure out which ones are good and worth doing and which ones should be trashed.
Yep.
Should never see the light of day. But that's tough when you're starting something.
Yeah.
To bring somebody alongside immediately.
Yeah, it is. And I can totally see the value in it. And it would be sort of an assumption here, but if you did that sort of as you were starting out, would you just say to yourself, hey, this person is going to cost me. I'm just getting started. I know like the first few weeks, the first few months, first who knows how long, actually, what I'm going to pay them is not going to be made up by income necessarily, but I've got this capital set aside. I know this is a legit business expense that I need to incur for the success of the mission. Is that how you would view that?
If I were doing it today, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly how I would view it today.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating.
I didn't view it that way then. I didn't even think about it then. It was we have this capital saved up and it has to sustain us. I'm not planning on this paying us for some time.
Yep.
And so, but if we were doing it over today, absolutely,
yep.
I would think about it that way.
Yep. All right.
I would dedicate a chunk of that money to having someone help steer the ship with me to make sure.
I think that's actually really, really wise. Last question.
Mm-hmm. The last question ever?
Yeah, like there will be no more questions from me ever. No.
A little bit sad.
You can assume that's not going to be the case. But here is the last question for the podcast. Actually, it's not even the last question. Okay, let's just take that pressure off. How about that?
Yeah,
here's another question. Here we go.
It's like my last at-bat.
It's actually not the last question, but here's a question for you. You're a busy man. You have a lot going on, and you either spend a lot of time outdoors or you get a lot of value from being outdoors, and it could be the latter. But in any case, I know the outdoors plays a role in your life. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've actually become a little bit fascinated with, and I've asked a couple of the other recent guests on the GBS podcast, the ones that made sense anyway. So I'm curious to you, what role does the outdoors play in your life?
Practically? Like how do I engage with the outdoors?
What value do you get from the outdoors? Like when you're not outdoors enough, something's missing.
Yeah. So I think for me, it is emotional, it's physical, and it's spiritual. Those three things. Physically, I like to walk around our place. I got in a rhythm there for a while where I was doing it like every single day. I would start my day with a quiet time, and then I would get on my little hiking boots. They're not little. I don't know why I said that. It sounded kind of funny. My little hiking boots. And I would go walk, down this hill, over there, up. I'd walk around our property line, really. And I would do that 2 or 3 times. And you encounter some hills, so you're working up a sweat. Mm-hmm. I'm not running. I'm not power walking, but it's a good pace. Yep. And I would leave my phone in the house. And I would almost my version of meditating. Mm-hmm. I would repeat, thank you, God. Like, look at this place, and thank you for my wife, and thank you for my kids. And I'm a huge proponent of gratitude. Like that is just, Dave would always say, and it's absolutely the truth, that one of the most winsome, attractive characteristics in any human is gratitude. And I try to practice that a lot. I feel like I have a lot to be grateful for that are not material things. Mm-hmm. If all the stuff goes away, if all the businesses fail, I have the grace and love of my Savior. Mm-hmm. I have the love of a good woman who I adore, who is legitimately my best friend. I have 4 little people running around who call me daddy and give me hugs and kisses every day, and who for some reason think I'm pretty cool. And I have good friends. I'd probably keep a little bourbon, like what else do you need in life, really? And so I would walk. I like to walk around, and I like to work up a sweat, and I like to struggle a little bit. Joe Rogan talks about that. Who, whether or not, have you ever listened to this podcast?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a family-friendly podcast.
Right.
But I'm fascinated with him as an interviewer. His conversational style is something I want to recreate in a podcast that we're working on. And his freedom to sit down and talk with whoever the heck he wants to talk to. It could be a comedian, it could be a surfer, it could be a scientist, it could be an author, whatever he's interested in, which is what I want to do that. But he talks a lot about it's good for humans to struggle physically. There is a physical chemical reaction in the body when we struggle, when we fight against something, because it's in our DNA. It's what we've always done. We've always had to struggle and fight, but just way less so now in modern day times. We don't have to go out and physically, hunt down meals to feed our families anymore. But I do believe there's something good in climbing those hills and sweating and struggling a little bit. And I love to practice gratitude when I'm doing that. So there's one way. I love to hunt. I'm not very good at it. I'm not. But I love the process of getting up early and putting on that camo and walking into the woods as quietly as I can, wearing a headlamp that's infrared, or not infrared, but red light, because you don't want the deer to see the white light, or anything that you're hunting for that matter. And getting up in a tree stand 25, 30 feet, phone off, unconnected, silence. It sounds like this, although way quieter. When you're in a tree stand at 4:30 a.m., you don't hear anything except the occasional coyote or a raindrop coming off of a leaf, and then 5:30 maybe squirrels, birds start to come. I mean, you watch the world come to life. And there is something, and specifically in a tree stand, the breeze will blow and trees move. You don't realize these trees move until you're sitting 30 feet up in one and you're being rocked to sleep. And you're going, holy cow, wait a minute. This thing is moving and I'm in it. And it's pretty dark, but there's something so special about that. And creation is just, it's incredible. But I don't think we engage with it nearly as much as we should. There's something really fun about that. So mentally, spiritually, just talking to God. Most of the time in that gratitude, or from the stance of gratitude, not really like, here's what I'm struggling with and give me this and do, but just going, man, thank you for letting me be here. And thank you for these friends and for my wife and for this creation that allows me to sit up here and do this. Those are the two main ways that I engage with the outdoors.
I think that's put really, really well. And it echoes and brings clarity, I think, to what some of the other people have said too. But I think you're actually onto something. There is something spiritual about being outdoors because you are directly contacting creation. And I'm a big proponent of like viewing there's a spiritual aspect to our work and other things too, but when you're walking barefoot through green grass on a summer day,
I was just about to talk about being barefoot, man.
Well, see, this is something else that's come up. So I don't know much about this, but my wife knows a lot about this stuff. There's actually health benefits from your bare feet
100%
contacting the earth. I mean, it's amazing. So I think you're totally right with there being physical, emotional, and spiritual benefits to being in the outdoors.
That's why beach time, I think, is so therapeutic. Being the salt water, the salt air, being connected to the sand. I've heard a lot of people talk about spending a week barefoot on the sand next to the ocean is so physically good for your body.
That's such a great point because you're usually not wearing shoes or pants or shirt. So fascinating. All right, Chris, this is the last question. You're in business. Our listeners are in business. There's wins, there's losses, there's successes, there's failures. It's fulfilling, it's frustrating. It's all these things going on. What if you had to just give a piece of advice for our listeners in closing, what might that be?
A piece of advice. Oh, I feel like I'm so bad at this. I don't know that it's as much a piece of advice as it is just something to tuck in the back of your brain. And I say it to myself, I'm not kidding, 100 times a day. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And so here's what I mean by that. I have a buddy of mine who, have you ever seen that T-shirt that says, I love Jesus, but I drink bourbon and I cuss a little?
I've not. I mean, it sounds like a great T-shirt.
It's a great T-shirt. So I don't have one, but my neighbor, good friend, has one, and it's a black T-shirt, and it just says in white on the front, I love Jesus, but I drink bourbon and I cuss a little. And so I have another friend who, he and I, every time we see each other, we say, hey, just remember, none of this stuff, and we use a different word when we say it to each other, none of this stuff matters. None of it. And here's what we mean by that. And we'll even expound on that together, even though we've done this 100 times. I don't mean God doesn't love us. I don't mean that he doesn't. I mean, he created the earth. He created you. He created me. He created the guy who built this table and the people who invented these lights and this camera and the people who made this bourbon. He cares about this place. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, in the scheme of eternity, we don't show up. We don't. This physical time on earth doesn't register. You can't see it. And so I think we just have to keep in perspective, you know, if a chef cancels at the last minute and you got to figure out who in the crap is going to fill in for them, or if a partner who has paid you a lot of money this year says, hey, we love you, Chris, but we're not going to pay you that money next year. The reality is, I don't want to like discount that there are people who really struggle in this life. Mm-hmm. And there are people who have issues that are hard to overcome. But the reality for the vast majority of people is that we will never be broke down, destitute, under a bridge, not knowing what to do. Mm-hmm. It's just not reality. We feel like that in the moment. Mm-hmm. When that crisis is upon us, we feel like that, but it's not reality. I truly believe it's a lie from the enemy. That at that moment, that little crack is open in your brain, and he sees that as an opportunity to say, you're going to be a failure. Your wife is going to leave you. Your kids are going to hate you. You're going to lose absolutely everything that you care about, and you're going to be under a bridge. Nobody's going to care. It's just not the truth.
Yeah.
The reality is, keeping it in perspective, none of this stuff really matters in the scheme of eternity. It's just a dumb event where people eat food and drink whiskey. It's just a podcast. It's just selling sheds to people.
Yep.
It's more about, I really believe, the souls that are connecting on this earth that he created. Those are the important things. Mm-hmm. And so it's, for me, and maybe that's, I'm telling you the truth, I've never thought about it as a process, but maybe that's why I'm like, guys, if you don't want to work with us, that is right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I legitimately, it's not a sales pitch. I value that person and that relationship more than the transaction that may occur, them paying us money to do something or vice versa. It just is, man, it's very cliche, but like life is just too short. We're right. I mean, we're here but for a vapor or whatever, whatever scripture you want to point to.
Yep.
It's the truth, man.
Yep.
It is absolutely the truth.
Yep.
So I would say none of this stuff matters. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep perspective. Keep the eternal perspective. Well, Chris Thomas, thank you very much.
Oh,
appreciate it.
So it's
great to have you on the show.
The yellow gloves.